I'm here with my good friend Thalia Williams. I met her through Oasis Lifelong Learning, and she's just a very good. I've seen her public speaking. She's very good at public speaking. She's a great leader, and she just has an engaging way with people. So, very much one of my good friends and someone who is out there doing cool stuff like helping senior citizens to learn about technology. And we're also going to be talking about cancer recovery today. So she's the marketing concierge for David Plemons CPA. And she also volunteers with me speaking to older adults, senior citizens about technology and helping them to learn the ways of technology and also what not to do, because there's ways you can get in trouble too with technology nowadays.
Very true.
And we can definitely talk about that. So how are you doing today, Thalia?
I am well. A little chilly, but I'm doing good. Doing good. Unusually cold weather for San Antonio. So
It's
I've
crazy.
been hibernating today.
Yeah, me too. Just staying home, staying safe. I went out yesterday and I saw a huge crash. I was like, I'm gonna stay home. I'm gonna stay home.
Wise decision. Wise decision. Yes.
Yeah.
Folks don't know how to drive on rain, so we don't know how to drive on ice.
And people were doing risky maneuvers. I know that's out there, but people were doing some really risky maneuvers. So I was like, I'm just gonna stay home tomorrow. But
Wise decision. I agreed. I didn't do anything but warm up my car just because I didn't want the engine block to freeze. So I let it go and warmed up and thawed out the windshield and everything like that.
yeah, awesome, very good. And today we're gonna be talking about education. That's something that you said is you're very passionate about,
Oh,
something
yeah.
that's very near and dear to your heart.
Yes.
And I just want to ask you, why do you think that is, or what's your story that led that to being something that's very important to you?
Well, I have been in education off and on for about 35 years. I started when my daughter was in the womb as a substitute teacher in high school substitute teacher. And I'm only 5'1". So basketball players in high school were already taller than me when I was teaching. So they thought I was one of the students because I had such a baby face. But but when I stood at the door and they walked in, hey, what's up, sis? Blah blah blah. Then when I stood in front of the classroom, they went, oops. So I have been in education for, like I say, about 35 years. Now I've taught from high school, middle school, elementary school, and adult ed. And I found that I am not an elementary school teacher.
Mhm.
I have a passion for educating, period. But the education for babies and preschoolers and first through sixth, fifth graders, I don't have the patience for it. I love middle schoolers, love high schoolers, but adults really are my passion. So I've enjoyed educating them because knowledge is power.
Yeah,
That's how you make sound decisions, or you make better quality decisions by being educated, having knowledge of something.
yeah. It's always fascinated me, like the impact that educators have on people's lives. I know I've had some teachers who've touched my life a lot and really
Yeah.
pushed me forward, or maybe believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. Do you have
Yep.
any stories like that did you know someone like that, or do you have a story where you played that role for someone else?
Yes, I have.
Yeah.
As a former employee of Oasis, a direct
Mhm.
employee, I was able to go into the senior citizen centers here in San Antonio and teach introductory computer classes. And there was one woman, actually, there were several of them, but this one particular woman, she was afraid to touch the computer. Totally afraid. Just like, it's going to blow up if I touch it. If I press the button, it's just going to disintegrate.
Yeah.
And the classes were offered, they were free classes. So every 6 weeks, we basically do the same thing, which is introduction to the computer, the different components of it, learning how to use it, how to get an email, learning some word processing and things like that. Well, after about 4 rounds of her taking the class, because she came every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday,
Mhm.
after 4 rounds of taking that class, she became my teacher's assistant.
Okay.
She became so proficient at the simplistic stuff where there was no fear of touching a computer. She ended up being my teacher's assistant. She also helped with other students getting acclimated. She told them about her journey. So that was rewarding, very rewarding to see that light bulb go off and that fear dissipate, just go away. And I
Yeah.
was just like, yes, that's what I'm talking about. And
That's
then there were others too. There were couples who grandchildren had given them computers, and I teach introductory iPhone and intermediate iPhone also. So, we incorporate a lot of the technology aspect into our class because they were like, well, what about this and what about that? So me being generous is like, well, sure, we'll talk about it. And then I ended up teaching some more classes on introductory iPhone, iPad, so on and so forth. So yeah, that was
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. Very cool. That's amazing that you took her from not even wanting to touch the computer to teaching other people how to do it. That's
Oh
amazing.
yeah, and it helped build up her confidence because she was a valuable employee when she worked. Most of the seniors at that point had retired, so they were basically trying to stay up to date with certain things because the Senior Citizen Center offered so much: line dancing, arts, crafts, computer technology, and everything like that. So she used to be a postal worker, and
Mhm.
then there was another one there who used to be a former truck driver. So both of them basically came in with very little knowledge about an actual PC, and both of them eventually became my teaching assistant. One was the main and one was the backup. So when
Wow.
the main one wasn't there, the backup came and she stepped in, and it was just amazing. It really, really was.
Yeah. And of course, we met through Oasis. We were teaching cybersecurity courses, which was a lot of fun. I remember my first class being very nervous, and
Oh
then
yeah, you were.
drinking a bunch of coffee. Like that's gonna help. I was drinking a bunch of coffee too at the same time.
Yeah, you were wired then. It was like, just calm down, Joseph. You got this. You're the expert. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate that. I remember that actually. I remember that.
You're
And
welcome.
saying,
You're welcome. And that's how you have to kind of feel when you're standing in front of those people. You don't
mhm,
have to talk down to them, but you have to let them know, hey guys, I'm open for questions. I have some knowledge that you don't have. So my goal is to give you the knowledge that I do have.
yeah, very cool, very cool. And so I was gonna ask you, like, how did you get aligned with Oasis? Like, how did that start? How did you?
Well, it started with a friend of mine who does the San Antonio business networking here. It's the San Antonio business calendar.
Okay,
And he used to work for Oasis, Michael Espinoza. He
yeah,
used to work for Oasis. And I was telling him prior to me getting with them, I'm bored. I need more of a challenge. I miss talking to people in an educational environment. And I
mhm,
wasn't going to go back to school to get a degree in teaching, master's in education, all that sort of stuff, because no, I'm just not going to do that. Because
mhm,
the kids nowadays are truly crazy. They're sweet, but they're crazy. And it's like, I
yeah,
really wanted to impart knowledge into adults. So he was like, well, there's this organization that he taught for because he taught technology classes and he stepped away from it. And he was like, well, yeah, it's called Oasis and they deal with people over 55. And I think you'd be a really good fit. So I was sure. Okay. He gave me the information, gave me the contact name and everything like that. Well, when I called and I said, may I speak to so and so?
mhm,
And there was a pause at the end of the line. And I was like, hello? And they said, I'm sorry, so and so is no longer here.
ooh,
So I'm like, oh, okay, well, is there someone else I can talk to?
mhm,
And the person on the other end was like, no, I asked, when would he be back? Or when will that person be back? And the guy was like, on the other end, he's dead. I was
ooh,
like, oh, I am so sorry. Is this a bad time to call?
yeah,
This guy who was supposed to be my point of contact had just recently passed suddenly.
wow, yeah,
And the grief was just now hitting the staff. So the guy said, well, how about I take your name and number and we'll get back to you?
mhm,
I was like, okay. So that was kind of like my first encounter with them, not knowing, that POC who handled that new people coming in had transitioned. He had passed away. So they eventually got back to me and I ended up meeting his wife and now we're the best of friends.
very cool, very cool.
Yes.
And that's interesting because I interviewed Michael Espinosa, I think about 2 or 3 weeks back.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, yeah,
Small world, isn't it?
it is. It really is. I've been noticing that, and it really is a small world, San Antonio. It's millions of people, but I run into the same people. I don't know. It's interesting.
It's the
Uh,
circle of friends in which you travel in.
yeah, yeah. And so, what was your first class like? Well, tell me about your first class if you remember from just teaching in general.
Oh man, first
Your
class teaching in general.
yeah,
Well, when you teach kindergartners, or rather first to sixth graders,
yeah.
me personally, I had to take Excedrin.
Mhm.
because Miss Williams, he's messing with Miss Williams. She's touching me. Miss Williams. No. Mm-mm. So that assignment didn't last but a day. Okay. But my very first teaching experience, that's when I was pregnant with my daughter.
Mhm.
And standing in front of a classroom of high school students, they were seniors, senior high school students, and having a belly, because I was about 6 months pregnant at the time, and having a belly going, yes, I am your substitute teacher for English. And they all looked at me and went, how old are you? I said, I'm pregnant. What difference does it make? That don't make a difference, Miss Williams. And at that time, I was a single parent. That doesn't make a difference. So how old are you? So I told them, they went, and you're going to teach us? So being a sub, you have this disrespect that comes with the class because you're only there for a day or a session. They're only going to deal with you for that hour, that time period. Yeah. Well, my concern was, okay, well, yeah, I'm a sub, but there's work to be done. She left work for you. And so they threw spitballs and airplanes and they turned to talk to one another and said, oh, okay. So that was my first experience. So it wasn't that brilliant or wasn't that exciting. It was like, how rude can you guys be? And then I felt bad because, when subs were not, back in the day, when I was in high school, kind of did the same thing. So I figured, you're getting your rewards from being, that atrocious student where you turned around and listened to your friends and ignored the sub.
I remember that with subs, when I was younger too. It was because they're not coming back, so there's no long-term consequences.
That's what they thought. Yeah. But I ended up being the substitute for their final English semester. They had to pass my class in order to graduate. Wow. So needless to say, the respect just woof. Yeah. Just because, with a sub, you're only there maybe a day, maybe two, at the most a week. Because, they're out on vacation or some injury or something like that. But when the English department told me, well, you're going to be the sub for the rest of the semester, I was like, really? That was exciting. And they didn't know it. They had no clue. Okay. They had no clue. They just kept seeing me come back and come back. And after 3 weeks, they went, is Miss So-and-so coming back? No. Oh, and I was like, yeah, all of these assignments are missing. Aren't you supposed to graduate in a little while? As I was saying, class, all of a sudden, just everybody, oh man, just focused attention. I'm like, oh, okay. So that was my first teaching experience. And it was pretty interesting. I loved it. I mean, I love the high school students. I really do. And middle school students. Love them. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. What advice would you have for a teacher or a teacher of any age? So it could be adults, high school, middle school, for building that authority in the classroom so that they take you seriously. Because you were talking at the beginning, it's like with subs, they're just like playing games, not even talking, not even paying attention. So how do you build that authority? What have you learned over the years doing that?
Well, my go-to when I was teaching high school and middle school was to say, hey, there are those that are here to learn. There are those that are not. If you're here to learn, perfect. I'm going to be here to teach you. But if you're not here to learn and you want to be disruptive, you have two choices. And I'd always give them a choice because they ultimately have one regardless. One choice was you can cooperate or you can go to sleep. Yeah. One of the two. You can cooperate, participate in class, or you can go to sleep. Because if you go to the principal's office, your mama or your daddy or your guardian's going to be called. Do you really want to have that headache on you when you get home? You don't really want to hear that, do you? I didn't think so. So you have a choice. You can go to sleep or you can participate. Yeah. That established like, wow, she is so cool. You're going to let me sleep? Because I don't want to disrupt the ones who want to learn. Yeah. Okay. So establishing that authority in the classroom, and if you become a teacher and you're not a sub, you have to be able to be genuine with those people, with those children, with those adults, but also set parameters and boundaries, recognizing that someone's going to try you. Yeah. Someone's going to try you, and whatever rules you have, you need to stick to your guns. No matter how sweet they may be, no matter how they look, no matter how they talk to you, as far as, oh, Miss So-and-so or Mr. So-and-so, what about this? And they bat them baby browns or blues or whatever. The rules state A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3. If you choose to press against them, then there's a consequence because you made a choice.
Yeah. And that's kind of the defining moment, right? Is like, is she gonna stick to her guns when it comes down to it?
Exactly. And once I did a few times, they were like, oh, she's serious.
Yeah.
Because my thing was with the high school students, long as you didn't snore, I was good. If you're gonna go to sleep, just don't snore. Yeah. That's all, because you're gonna disrupt everybody else.
Yeah.
But I can't kick you out because you go to the principal's office, they're gonna send you back. Then they're gonna make a phone call, like I said, to your parents or to your guardian, and that's gonna cause you more drama. So why have drama for 50 minutes? Take a chill pill. Go to sleep.
Yeah.
And they loved me. I was like their favorite sub in the high schools that I used to teach at. I was their favorite sub. Miss Williams coming. Yes. Okay.
Very good. Very good. And what lessons would you have in general for someone who's thinking about becoming a teacher or someone who's a beginner at teaching? Like, if you could go back to a young Thalia Williams, Thalia Williams, who was teaching, what would you say?
I would say be confident in knowing that you know the stuff.
Yeah.
Be confident knowing that you know it, because the heart of you getting into teaching is because you want to share the wealth of knowledge that you have. Your style is not going to be anybody else's style. Your personality is what comes across. And when it's genuine, the kids will be impacted by that. The adults will be impacted by that. Mm-hmm. And being genuine and being yourself, I mean, you can't be your bar self, obviously, but you don't have to be your church self either. You just be you. Be warm, be open-minded at least, but realize you have the knowledge that they so greatly need.
Yeah.
And just take confidence in that. They're not going to bite, though. If you get a kindergartner, they might, but overall, they don't bite.
Yeah.
And most of the time they want to see just how strong you really are.
Yeah. That makes sense. And it sounds like they kind of test you, like the high school students, like they kind of test.
Oh yeah. Every student, be it an adult, be it a child, will test the instructor. That's just the nature of the beast. It's like, what are my parameters? How much can I get away with? Even in my adult ed classes, I would have some when one summer right before my daughter was born, I taught at a community college. Mm-hmm. And that was when the DOS system was up. Remember DOS? Where you had to put the floppy disk in. Oh no, you too young. I'm sorry, Joseph.
I kind of do. Yeah.
But you had to put the disc in the slot and not touch it like you did the CDs. You remember CDs, right?
Yes.
Okay, so you had to hold it like that for the CDs, but with the disc, you just had the paper around it and you had to slide it in. Well, it was the same thing. Most people didn't know how to slide it in and they were really nervous. Well, one woman was like, well, how can you tell me anything? You just a baby yourself and blah, blah, blah. And I went, okay. And I was 8 months pregnant at that time.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, I was about 8 months pregnant at that time. So my patience was a little thin. Just a little bit. And, my daughter was kicking on the inside and stuff. And I went, ma'am, you are probably correct in the assessment of my age, but I'm the teacher, you're the student, and you were told to come here to learn so you can get a job. So let's get you trained and assist you in becoming a more productive individual. And she looked at me and she was like, yeah, you're right. I was like, yeah, let's make you a more productive individual, because you're already an individual, but let's make you more productive.
Yeah. At the end of the day, you're there to help them, right? So I think that's a great point. Let me see. Thalia, can you hear me? Let's see. Looks like I'm having some technical issues. I'm waiting for Thalia to come back. I don't know if I can hear her. Looks like she froze. Let's see. But we were just talking about different tips for educating and how to really gain authority in the class. And let's see what I can do.
You didn't have before.
Oh, hey, it cut off for me. I don't know if it was on my end or your end, but I was just kind of like talking about what we were talking about.
Okay, there we go. Is that better?
Yeah, now we're back. So very cool. And then so how long have you been with Oasis, and like what are some moments that come into your memory, like from working in Oasis?
Let's see. I've been with Oasis since like this is 2021. I say like 2017.
Okay.
And I was an employee there for about a year.
Yeah.
Before I ended up my real job, I call it my primary job, said, we want you more on board. So I ended up leaving Oasis, but I'm still a contractor with them. But Oasis for me was fulfilling a passion because all they catered to was the 55-year-old community.
Yeah.
And I knew that they were the ones that was most challenged when it came to technology.
Mhm.
I just knew it. And I loved working with Oasis. The staff over there is phenomenal. The volunteers are even more so because each one of those volunteers are history walking because they're older. They've seen things that you and I can only imagine. Well, I've seen more than you because I'm older than you. But for me, they have lived through World War II.
Wow.
Some of them had lived through, one lady had lived through World War I. Okay. But just the mere fact that they were walking history, and you can get educated just by talking to them. And then the individuals I met who were learning the technology, that's what was cool too. So it was phenomenal. I really enjoyed it.
Very cool. Very cool. So back in 2017, you joined Oasis, and what are some like lessons that you've learned from that, or what are some lessons that you learned from just teaching in general?
Lessons that I've learned that everybody is capable of learning if they want to.
Yeah.
Everybody. It doesn't matter what age you are, you're capable of learning. And a lot of the elderly or senior citizens feel like they can't learn because this stuff is so fast or it changes so quickly that they can't learn. And that's one thing I wanted to instill in all of my students. You're capable of learning. If you're perpendicular to the ground, you're capable of learning.
Yeah.
Something new all the time. And that was one of the greatest takeaways I had from working with them. And I'm still contracted with them, so I teach periodically. But that was one of the things that I learned a lot. And one of the things I want to impart to the students that I dealt with. You are capable of learning and instill that confidence in them, and then give them a few tricks and the trade of the device they were using to dazzle their nieces and nephews and their grandchildren. Tio, you know that? Tia, you know that? Abuelo, yeah. Versus depending on them to show them how to do it, because they pick up the phone. This is how you do it, and they be like, "That's not showing me how. That's doing it for me."
Yeah.
And I make them use their devices. I made them use their devices.
In the class, that's cool. So you actually have them going through and doing everything. That's awesome.
Oh yes, most definitely. Because you learn three ways. You learn auditory, visual, and by touching, kinesthetic.
Yeah.
So, some people need to do it. They need to do it. Other people just need to hear it. Some folks need to see it. But learning encompasses all of those senses. It's just some is more predominant than the others. So I try and roll into my classroom instruction some activities that are applicable to all learning styles.
Okay. Very cool. Very cool. And this is kind of well, what would you say is the difference between like a good teacher and a great teacher? Like, what's the difference between those two things?
For me, a good teacher is someone who can regurgitate the material, warm and personable. The students, are nice when the principal walks by, the room is orderly and everything like that. And the grades are nice and good. But a great teacher inspires curiosity.
Okay.
For them to learn more, to take it beyond just the classroom.
Yeah.
That's a great teacher, because that teacher has sparked a flame in a child or an adult that won't ever be extinguished, because now they become curious.
Yeah.
And that curiosity leads to more learning.
Yeah.
Which in turn leads to more curiosity, which leads to more learning. So it's perpetual.
Yeah.
And that's the difference in a great teacher versus a good teacher.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate your perspective on that. And next question I want to ask is, how do you inspire that curiosity in people? Like, what are some ideas of ways that teachers can do that? Do you know of any ideas?
Well, from what I could tell, you ask a question and you make them think. You know, you don't give them an answer, you make it an open-ended question and you allow them to think. You give them a topic, you tell them, I want you to brainstorm and just throw words against the wall. You know, like throw spaghetti against the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah.
So you get them thinking outside the box a little bit. You don't want them just to memorize facts or data or processes always. You want them to start thinking, how is this applicable to my life? How can I use this? Who else could be benefited by this? Or, what else can I learn about this particular topic? What else can I learn about this particular subject? How can I go about finding out more?
Yeah.
So inspiring them to think outside the box by posing questions.
Okay. I like that. Asking questions. That reminds me of like, I don't know, like the old Socratic method, I think they used to call it, where you just ask a bunch of questions.
Just ask a bunch of questions and don't give them the closed-in questions, no, yes, and no. You give them that open-ended stuff, make them think.
Yeah, and let them get there on their own too, instead of like you just telling them that's the way it is, like because I said so.
Right. And you can guide them, you would guide them, like I love my grandson. I have 4 grandchildren.
Yeah.
My grandson, he'll make this off the wall statement. And sometimes he's sincere about it. And I go, well, why do you say that? Mm-hmm. And he'll explain his rationale behind it. And I'll go, oh, okay, but have you thought about, and gave him a different angle to look at, and that helps him go like, oh, I never thought of it that way. Or either, nah, Nana, that don't work for me. I'm like, okay, all right. You haven't matured enough yet, maybe, to see it that way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that. Is there anything else you want to say on the topic of teaching older adults, I guess, since that's the main focus, or teaching technology?
I think that everyone underestimates the power of compassion and time. Because if you look at a senior citizen who was just given for Christmas an iPad, here, Grandma, keep in touch with us. You can FaceTime, you can do this, you can do that. And Grandma is looking at this going like, what am I supposed to do? How do I turn it on? Oh, you just hit the button and you just do this. Yeah. And it's programmed for you and everything like that. And Grandma's going, okay, that's nice. She'll look at it. Oh, baby, thank you. I love you too. And it'll go over in there and collect dust. Mm-hmm. Teaching seniors requires a different mindset, a different attribute of patience that you don't always find in the younger generation, because they're so used to microwave popcorn, doing this fast, move, quick. Yeah. Seniors don't move that fast.
Yeah.
They just don't. So they need patience. They need time. They need confidence built in them that says, yes, we can do this. Mm-hmm. Yes, I can do this. They just need to be taught differently because they're mostly hands-on.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense too. They are more hands-on. I never thought about that.
They're more hands-on, yes.
Yes. And any cool things that you've learned about technology through teaching technology? It sounds like you're an expert in technology, but is there anything cool?
No, not even close to being an expert. But I have learned that it changes all the time. You have to stay on top of it. What I knew 3 years ago when I started with Oasis has evolved into something else. So you have to stay on top of it because technology does change. And yes, it can be overwhelming, but I find my niche in staying on top of what I'm teaching. So if I'm teaching iPhone, iPad, iWatch, I've got drafted to a little bit of Android. I try and stay on top of that because that's what I'm teaching.
Yeah.
If I was to teach Microsoft, or rather, Microsoft Access or Microsoft PowerPoint, if I was to teach that, I'd become more proficient in studying that and understanding it. But because I don't teach it, I have a very high level view of using it. I knew a few shortcuts, but it's just staying on top of it, just staying on top of technology of what you use. If you don't use it, why waste the brain space to try and keep it in there? It's like Trivial Pursuit.
Yeah, it's a lot of information.
Not gonna do it.
What advice would you give to a young person, maybe like a millennial Generation Z, who's teaching maybe their grandparent or their older parent how to use their technology? What advice would you give in that situation?
Patience.
Yeah.
Patience. Allow them to do something themselves. Don't just do it for them. Give them the device and let them do it, or mimic what they do, mirror what they do. If you have an iPhone and they have an iPhone, sit beside them and show them what you do on your iPhone and have them follow you.
Mhm.
Have some patience because they will get it.
Yeah.
They will get it and they will practice, and only teach one thing at a time. Don't teach them how to copy and paste and attach a photo to an email all at once.
Okay.
Don't do that. Teach them how to copy and paste or how to text. Maybe
Okay.
upload a photo in a text, but don't give them 4 or 5 steps at once. Give them one, maybe two that tie together.
Yeah.
And that will assist them in feeling confident that they can handle their device.
Very cool. Very cool. Great lessons. Anything else you want to say on the topic of teaching? And then we can move on to the next topic of cancer recovery that we were talking
I think that teaching is, I think everyone has the ability to teach.
Mhm.
Everybody has the ability to teach because you're going to teach either consciously or you're going to teach unconsciously. And unconsciously is by your behaviors and your actions. Consciously is by you being deliberate about doing, saying, whatever. But everyone has the capabilities of teaching because children learn by observation.
about. Oh, yeah.
Adults learn by observation. So
Yeah.
everyone has the capability of teaching, whether it's formal in the classroom or just by who they are and walking through life. Everyone has the ability to teach.
Yeah. I like that. Okay, that's really cool because it's like we're constantly teaching people just by what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
People are watching and they're seeing what we're doing. And it's kind of like,
Exactly.
you could be teaching them the wrong things or the right things, or maybe
Exactly.
let's see.
Exactly. And you can teach them how to treat you as well as how not to treat you.
Oh, yeah. That goes back to boundaries, like you were talking about at the beginning, right?
Yes, it does. Yes,
Very
it
good.
does.
Very good. So okay. I very much enjoyed our conversation on education, and I learned a lot. So you're just talking about basically you have to have patience to be a good educator, and a great educator will inspire people to want to learn on their own. So you really ignite that fire in them, that they want to go learn more about the topic, and they're very passionate about it. So next, after that, let's talk about the next thing you said was education of cancer recovery. How did you get into that? What type of journey was it that led you into education of cancer recovery?
Well, in 2020, everyone says 2020 is perfect vision, right?
Yeah.
And we know 2020, the pandemic came in. Well, in 2020, I was diagnosed with 3rd stage ovarian cancer.
Oh.
And it was an interesting journey because in 2019, I had taken a cruise to Cozumel and Honduras, and I was traveling and enjoyed it immensely, not knowing how sick I really was.
Mhm.
So 2020 brought it all to a head where I ended up being diagnosed in May of 2020,
Mhm.
having 6 rounds of chemo, a 8-hour surgery. They removed 8 body parts. And on December 22nd, I was declared cancer free.
Okay.
So for me, cancer recovery has been about eating healthy, forgiving people, making peace with myself and my history of errors, loving myself more, and being able to recognize just how important life really is. I mean, I got 4 grandchildren. It's like, hey, I want to stick around to see all of them graduate. The youngest one is 5 and the oldest one is 12. So I got a little time. I got a little time. I want to see them develop.
Yeah. I did not know you were going through that, but congratulations on your recovery. That's
Thank you.
amazing. December 22nd. That's very recent. So
Yes, it is. God has been truly faithful to me through the whole process because he didn't have to. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, you've heard of many people who have passed because of cancer.
Yeah.
And this is during the pandemic, right? This is during the pandemic, 2020. I was diagnosed. I did 3 rounds of chemo from June, July, and August. Had my surgery September 2nd. I prayed and believed that I wouldn't be in the hospital no more than 4 days. I had the operation on a Wednesday. I was out on a Sunday.
Okay.
I changed my diet. I went to vegan eating almost immediately once I was diagnosed. And that in itself, along with changing my water habits, I started drinking alkaline water,
Okay.
giving everybody who had done me wrong to allow myself to be healed, because all that bitterness and anger and all the negativity, I believe, in addition to poor eating habits, because I was not genetically predisposed to any cancer at all.
Okay.
Okay. So that what led me to believe that I had all of the internal anger issues, bitterness, stress, all of that, in addition to poor eating and everything like that, which led to that disease.
Okay. I have a few questions in mind, but
Sure.
So let's talk first about the nutrition, and then we can talk about the other aspects of healing, like forgiving people. I think
Okay.
that's very important, because I agree, you hold on to that, and it's kind of like a weight that you're carrying on you when you don't, when you hold on to resentment or don't forgive people.
Agreed.
So I already had three guests who were very much into the vegan lifestyle. So it's almost taking it as a sign maybe, but I had a nutritionist on who was like plant-based, and I'm currently doing a detox, or one of her detoxes. And then I had another guest who was a vegan. What can you say about what differences did you feel when you started changing to a vegan
Well,
lifestyle, vegan diet? Go ahead.
for me, it was about wanting to live, first of all, wanting to live. And the way I was eating before and everything else that was going on wasn't allowing me to do that, because this disease had basically invaded my body. So in order for me to live, I didn't necessarily want to take the chemo. I mean, I didn't have the faith enough to do it all natural.
Yeah.
I just didn't. But I knew I had peace with the path that I was going to take, because I had prayed and like, okay, Lord, you're giving me a second chance, and I'm going to take it, because cancer does not have to be a death sentence. A heart attack could be a death sentence.
Yeah.
A stroke can be a death sentence, but cancer doesn't have to be a death sentence.
Yeah.
So the vegan lifestyle for me was building up my immune system so that it could fight off the cancer, the potential chemo that was coming, and repair myself, because your body has the best defense mechanisms in it, in the country, in the planet. There's nothing stronger than your immune system when it's working correctly.
Yeah.
Okay. Nothing. So you need to give it the right tools in order for it to work. If you go to the army and they gave you a machine gun that was missing the trigger, missing the barrel, broken bullets, you would be like, how am I supposed to fight a war with inadequate tools?
Yeah.
Well, your body's immune system is the same way. How can we fight off these invaders with poor tools? I mean, my immune system, T cells, B cells, all of those cells needed to be built up so that they could fight off this invader. Well, they had gotten compromised. They were given broken equipment to try and make them strong.
Okay.
Fatty foods, the meat, the cheese, the dairy, all the stuff, the sad standard American diet.
Oh, I've heard that. Yeah.
Was basically allow my immune system to get wiped out from the inside.
Okay.
So a vegan diet basically changes that by giving it more nutritionally sound foods, plant-based. You eat a lot of raw vegetables, you eat more whole grains, you eat more green vegetables and fruits. You lay off the meat, the cheese, the dairy, all the stuff that can clog your system versus building it.
Awesome. So it's just about, I really love that analogy that you use. It's about giving your body the tools that it needs to heal itself.
Right, exactly. Because food can be your medicine and medicine can be your food. Hippocrates.
Or your poison. It sounds like.
Right. Well, the goal is for food to be your medicine and
Yeah.
for medicine to be your food. That's Hippocrates, yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay. Very cool. And I wanted to ask you, how did you come up with that idea? Did you ever have like the idea of being a vegan before you got cancer? So okay. I'm the same way as you right now.
No, I'm a carnivore. Okay. Yeah. Truly a carnivore. Yeah. I did notice though, when I was not knowledgeable of my disease, certain foods would cause a negative reaction. Like I would get indigestion, which I normally wouldn't on something, or something would taste really funny and it'd be like, somebody didn't season it right or something like that.
Yeah.
That was, now hindsight is 2020. That was signals that something was going on with my body that I couldn't recognize. or I chose not to acknowledge, or I didn't investigate any further. It'll be all right. Just a bad recipe, or Now I
Yeah.
didn't get sick, but it's just the taste of it was different.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so how did you get that idea of eating a more plant-based or a vegan diet?
Well, what had happened was
Yeah.
I told one of my friends about it, and she immediately went into survival mode. You are going to eat healthy. You are going to do this. I'm going to cook for you, and blah, blah, blah. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, all right. But I did some research and recognized that the SAD diet was what was killing me in addition to everything else. So it's like, okay, I want to live. My goal is to live to see my grandchildren. I want to live to be 120. And it's like, I got to do something different.
Mm-hmm.
So she came in and she told me, this is what you need to do. Stop drinking this water and drink alkaline water. Stop frying this and start baking, sauteing this. Get rid of this, get rid of that. And I'm like, oh, okay. Wanting to live, you do anything that you'll be desperate to do anything necessary. So she cooked for me. She cooked kale. Love kale.
Yeah.
But I can do without it.
Yeah.
She cooked sweet potatoes, spinach, all the healthy foods. But olive oil became, avocados became, a prime staple in my diet for fats versus lard or vegetable oil or canola oil. Lots of fruit. Fortunately, I like vegetables and fruit anyway. It's just I never consumed enough of them because I was consuming other stuff.
Okay.
So I eliminated a lot of the other things and became more consumed with consuming whole grains. I mean, I started to like barley.
Okay.
I've eaten it before, but barley, that's a grain.
I never tried it.
Right.
Well,
But it's like barley soup.
In beer, I've tried it.
No. Wrong type. That's the fermented kind. We're not talking about the fermented kind, Joseph.
Yeah.
But the grain barley. So barley soup. Okay. Lentils, salads. I've always liked salads, but with salads, you got to put the cheese on it and the dressing and all of that stuff. Well, I had to like back off the cheese. But then I also found out that there's a vegan lifestyle out there where they have almost everything that mimics the real thing.
Okay.
So I started incorporating just a little bit of it. Like if I wanted some nacho chips, and I like nacho chips with cheese and sour cream, well, they have a vegan sour cream. Then they have vegan cheese.
Wow.
And then I started following this woman, Tabitha Brown, on YouTube. And Tabitha Brown is what anchored me in the vegan lifestyle during that time.
Okay.
Really.
Cool. I'll find her and I'll put her up on the.
Yes, Tabitha Brown.
Tabitha Brown. Awesome.
Tabitha Brown.
And do you have any favorite recipes that are vegan? Any favorite recipes or?
Oh yeah.
What's your absolute favorite?
One of them is vegan cheese, believe it or not, macaroni and cheese.
Oh, wow.
You can actually make vegan macaroni and cheese. And I blew two of my friends out the water with it because they were like, how do you make vegan macaroni and cheese? Mm-hmm. Well, unless you have a nut allergy, you can make vegan macaroni and cheese. It's basically like cashews, nutritional yeast, carrots, white potatoes, onions in a blender with some other stuff, and voila, you have cheese. And I made vegan macaroni and cheese. I also made vegan ranch dressing that, you can dip your vegetables in.
Yeah.
And I'm going like, oh my goodness. I didn't realize you could eat that well without dairy. Had no clue.
That's awesome. Very cool.
It is. It was. Still is.
Very cool. Very cool. And then you mentioned the alkaline water. Anything you want to say about that before we move on to the next part?
Alkaline water, I find, has made my body a lot better as far as my skin and things like that, because your body is supposed to be alkaline more so than acidic to fight off disease. Mm-hmm. When you're more acidic, you're basically allowing your immune system to be beat up. Whereas with alkaline water, it helps strengthens it because it makes the environment inhospitable for disease to stay.
Okay. That makes sense. Yeah. So that's okay. it's cool that I didn't even know you were going through that. So first, I think that's awesome. That's not awesome that it happened, but it's awesome that you recovered from
It is awesome that it happened because 2020 gave me a clearer vision of what I'm supposed to do with my life now.
And could you talk a little bit about that actually, now that we're on that topic? What would you say that clear vision is?
Sure. For me, I've always wondered what was my purpose. You know, you kind of run on this treadmill, or you run on what other people think you should be doing. I mean, I have a master's in marketing, a bachelor's of science in retail management, been in the workforce 30 plus years, education, a whole shot. But you know, it's like, what is my purpose?
Yeah.
Why am I here? I looked at it as God saying to Satan, hey, try her. I know that she's anchored in me. But I didn't know I was anchored in him until 2020. And then I realized I truly am anchored in him. And in him, meaning in God and in his word and his promises. Because his promises were, I will give you long life and I will satisfy you with long life. You are the healed and not the sick.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I say I believe you. Let's see if I do believe you. So I had to anchor myself on that word. And forgiving everybody because he forgave me, I had to forgive everybody. And that meant me too.
Yeah.
Forgiving me was the hardest part. Everybody else I could let go.
Yeah.
But forgiving me for the craziness that I did was like, that's a little rough. But in order for my healing to manifest, I needed to do that. I needed to forgive. And you will know when you've forgiven someone when you hear that name and it don't make your skin go on the inside. Or you don't go, argh. That's how you know you've forgiven.
Okay. And that sounds okay. There's a lot to that. So I'm trying to think of a good question.
Okay.
First of all, how did your faith help you through your cancer recovery? Let's start there. And then I really want to talk about forgiveness, but we'll get to that a little bit later.
Okay.
Or it can be part of it. Go ahead.
My faith was the rock in which I stood on.
Yeah.
It really was. It solidified for me more so the fact that I know that God is my healer. I mean, I'm a 3rd stage cancer survivor. You don't hear of many people surviving 3rd stage ovarian cancer. I mean, Glenda Radner, back in the 70s when she was first diagnosed, she didn't live long after that. That was Gene Wilder's wife. She didn't live long. And I'm going, okay, 3rd stage. So recognizing that he's given me another opportunity and for me to be an encouragement for somebody else. When I was first diagnosed, I was like, wow. I didn't even go, why me? That was never a question. Never, ever that formed in my mind. It's like, okay, God, me and you, we're a majority. We about to handle this. Okay, we about to handle it. Because I've always been a fighter. I've always also been someone who believes in the glass is always half full. I've never been a pessimist, never. And I believe that attitude has helped me weather and go through this particular storm. My faith has become a lot stronger. You can't convince me that there is not a healer in God. I've come too far for you to try and convince me and talk me out of that. I'm living proof that he is. I got the pathology report that shows all the areas that the cancer was in and everything they took out of me. All 8 parts had some cancer cells in them.
Yeah.
And I'm still here. This is February 14th. Happy Valentine's Day, Joseph.
Happy Valentine's Day.
But I'm still here.
Yeah. Wow.
You know what I mean? So you can't convince me any other way at all.
Very cool. That's awesome. I love your attitude. Yeah, I've noticed you're very optimistic. And
always.
Yeah, that's awesome. The faith was really your rock. And I like your attitude too. It was never why me. I think that's common.
Oh, of course.
I've done that sometimes where I'm like, why me with things that are not even that big.
True enough.
Yeah.
And the challenge becomes you beating yourself up, which in turn creates more of a chemical imbalance, which doesn't help you heal.
Yeah.
It helps bring your defenses down because you got these chemicals running through your brain, which are stress induced, the cortisol and everything like that, which is causing your body to go into that fight or flight mode. you're pumping up adrenaline, and it's not like you're giving the healing cells opportunity to get healed or get whole to fight off this disease, because you keep bombarding it with the negative stuff. It's like you want the bombing to stop, but you're not stopping the bombing because you're still stressing and you're still worrying and you still,
Yeah.
Just stop.
Yeah. Very cool. And next, I really want to talk about forgiveness. That's a topic that I feel is very important, is forgiving people, because I've seen it sometimes where people like refuse to forgive, and it can really cause a lot of problems for the people involved and also the people around them.
True
So
enough.
how did you get on this journey of forgiveness? How did you first get the idea, like, I need to forgive people? Like, how did that happen?
Reading the Bible and finding out that if I don't forgive, God won't forgive me.
Okay.
And it's like, my arms are too short to box with God. I mean, they are.
Yeah.
So if Jesus Christ died on the cross for me, and he said, forgive them for they know not what they do,
yeah,
and he was the savior of the world, who am I to hold a grudge against somebody? And ultimately, I'm hurting me. I'm not hurting them, because they going on with their life. I'm the one ruminating it in my head. I'm the one thinking about it, getting all upset. My blood pressure going up. My cells, DNA is changing and all of that. It ain't worth it. Why? Because they're living their life. I'm over here living mine in a prison that I created because I won't forgive.
Yeah.
No. I need to be free.
Yeah.
And that's what forgiveness gives you, that freedom.
Yeah. Forgiveness gives you that freedom. I like that.
Yes, it does. Because if they never apologize, that's on them. Mm-hmm. If you don't forgive them, that's on you.
Yeah.
So you are justified by holding a grudge, not to forgive them. They don't care. They could care less.
Yeah.
But you're the one that's imprisoned by that anger, that root of bitterness, that hatred, that whatever, that animosity, that
yeah.
Let it go, let it go, let it go.
Definitely. And any stories that you don't have to share any if you don't want to, but any stories of forgiveness that you want to share about that time of your life where you decided you were going to forgive people, or just that you prepared to forgive?
Oh yeah. Well, there was a particular individual who threatened my livelihood with some actions that I felt were extremely unfair. And I had to make a mad dash. You know how you see those superheroes leaping from a tall building to a lower building, but the gap in between, you got to hope that they make it.
Yeah.
That's what I had to do. And I was very angry, very bitter, very, very angry and very bitter because of that leap I had to make. I ended up taking a pay cut. I landed safely, but I ended up taking a pay cut. And I was just like, why? I didn't do anything. You know, that I was like, what did I do to deserve that? And I had to literally forgive that person when I was diagnosed in order for me to get healed, because I realized that was just like hair down a drain that Drano had to clean out.
Yeah.
And if I didn't pour enough Drano down there, which was the word of God, which was actual forgiveness, that could have clogged my pipe to keep me from being healed.
Yeah.
So that particular person, I had to forgive them. And how I knew I had forgiven them, I could hear their name and not go on the inside.
Yeah.
Right. Or either go, I don't want to see their post. I don't want to do that. And not talk bad about them.
Yeah.
Okay. Because this is a small town.
You're right. It is.
And you don't know who knows who. And it'll get back to them and it'll be convoluted for what you actually said.
Yeah.
So it's best not to say nothing.
Yeah. Very cool. And okay. So you just reminded me, that's totally off topic. You just reminded me of Seinfeld where he goes, Newman, like the way he says his name, because he hates him. But I wanted to say, what was it like? Did you forgive him? Did you contact that person or her to forgive him? Or
no?
Okay.
Because they were going on with their lives.
Yeah.
They could care less about how I felt because they were going on with their lives.
Okay.
I was the one that was imprisoned by it.
Yeah.
I was the one that was imprisoned. If an opportunity ever came up for me to say, I forgive you for what you've done, I will do so. But I'm not going out of my way to hunt them down
Yeah.
God will make our paths cross when it's time.
Okay.
What is that? Serendipity? He'll make our paths cross when it's
Yeah.
time. And until then, all I can do is keep that thought that the enemy keeps bringing to my head about what they did. Like, nope, I done forgiven them, because your thoughts will drive you crazy over the edge. Like, they did that to you, and how could you do that? And blah, 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 blah. You see what they doing? Blah, blah, blah. Then you go start rehearsing and reviewing all the negative, all the past, and getting all angry and upset again. What is that doing? Absolutely nothing to them, and jacking you up.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good.
That's okay. That's awesome. And so what was that process of forgiveness like? Like, how did you get to a point where you would hear someone's name and you're just like, and then now it's like, okay.
I had to recognize that my life has more value than staying angry. And I have 4 minions that I want to live for.
Yeah.
And those 4 minions are more important to me than holding on to that anger and that unforgiveness of that person. And as I studied God's word more and more and stayed on that one scripture that says, if you can't forgive, God won't forgive you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think about all the crazy crap that I've done in my 60 years on this earth. Woo, Jesus, you need to forgive me. So I need to hurry up and forgive them.
Yeah.
You know, because this lifetime is short. It's a spit in the ocean compared to eternity.
Yeah.
It really is. And this is not the end all be all. This is just a stopping point. So with knowing that, my 60 years, 120 years is literally a spit in the ocean in eternity.
Yeah.
Do I want to really stand before God and say, well, I didn't forgive so-and-so because of this? And he's going to look at me and go, well, I forgave you. And the list goes down. And I'm like, ooh. And when you're up there, my opinion, when you're up there in front of God, ain't no going back and say do-over.
Yeah.
Ain't no do-over. Every morning you wake up is a do-over because his mercies are new every morning.
Yeah.
So if I'm up this morning, I got a chance to do something better than I did yesterday.
Yeah.
And every time he gives me breath in my body to wake me up and I'm in my right mind, mm-hmm. I can recognize stuff, because there are folks that has Alzheimer's and they ain't in their right mind, but they woke. Yeah. Right? They awake, but they're not in their right minds. I'm grateful. So it's like, okay, God, I got you. I'm going to forgive because I want to live. I want to live. So I had to forgive. Had to. No choice.
Awesome. And then we come to the hardest forgiveness of all, forgiving yourself.
Yeah.
How do you go about doing that? Or how does someone do that?
I think the thing is accepting the fact that, yes, you made the mistakes, mm-hmm. but guess what? You can't do anything to undo those mistakes you made because they're in the past.
Yeah.
You can't go back and undo the past. You know, the word says, or people say, you know, if I knew then what I know now, I'd have done things differently. Yeah, you might have, but you'd be different too. You might not be in the same place.
Yeah.
Okay. So recognizing that I can't go back and change the past, I have to accept it, but recognizing that once I confess that to God and say, hey, God, I messed up, forgive me, and trust and believe that he will based on his word.
Yeah.
That's the trust and the faith that I have in his word. That's unchangeable. It's immutable.
Yeah.
So if I believe that he's forgiven me because I've confessed it, my job is to walk in that faith, walk in that truth that I am forgiven. Now, I have an enemy that don't want me to forget, but God says I forget it as far as the east is from the west. I've thrown it out. It's covered by the blood. You think about when you cover, if you waste milk on something, it covers the stain. You can't see it anymore. Well, that's what the blood of Jesus has done for me when I've asked him to forgive me of my sins.
Awesome.
It's wiped away.
Yeah. And how do you feel now differently than before you began this forgiveness journey?
Oh, man, freer, lighter, feel like a feather on the inside.
Yeah.
You know, I don't feel so weighed down. Like Hebrews 12:1 talks about, get rid of the sin and the weight that does so easily beset you. Or sin and a weight, two totally different things. A weight is like, you know, like you're pumping weights and stuff, and a weighted jacket and things like that. Just get rid of it. And that's how I feel now that I've forgiven myself as well as others.
Yeah. And man, okay. That's an awesome message. First of all, I really enjoy that message because I think it's so important that people hear that, because you do hold on to stuff, or sometimes people do. I've done it before,
Mm-hmm.
and it just weighs you down. And the other person's just going about their life, having fun. They may not even have known that they hurt you.
Right. They
Yeah,
don't care. Okay.
yeah,
They just don't care because it's not impacting their lives, but
yeah,
it's impacting yours.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then so you said you focus on nutrition. It seems like you took a very holistic approach to cancer recovery.
Mm-hmm.
What's like the biggest lesson you learned from that the whole ordeal?
Wow. I'm stronger than I know.
Yeah.
My faith is bigger than I anticipated. God is awesome because he loved me enough to allow me to stick around. He gave me a second chance. Um, the mere fact that I had it, I didn't allow it to destroy me mentally, emotionally, physically. I mean, I have a scar that's 18 inches long.
Mhm.
I'm missing some body parts,
Mhm.
but I'm still here. The biggest lesson was the fact that he allowed me to be an instrument in his hand to potentially bless somebody else.
Yeah.
Because obviously my work isn't done yet. Because if it was done, I'd have been out of here.
Yeah.
I would have been viewed instead of being seen right now.
Yeah.
Okay. But obviously I still have purpose.
Mhm.
So for me, the biggest takeaway is, what is my purpose now? What am I supposed to do now? And
Yeah.
that's what I seek him for every day.
That's
Every
awesome.
day.
Very
Mhm.
cool. And it sounds to me, you said you had your 4 grandchildren who mean a lot
Yes.
to you.
Oh my goodness. Yes.
What would what do you want to teach them? It's kind of a tough question. Like, what would you, if you could teach them one thing, like what would be like the main thing you would want to teach your 4 grandchildren?
Learn about and trust God.
Okay.
Learn about him and trust him, because he is the anchor of everything in your life going forward, no matter if it's good or bad. Because the good is, you'll automatically think of God with that, but the bad also, because he works everything to the good of those who love him and are called according to his purpose. But trust him, understand him, learn his word. You can hide it in your heart, so when trouble comes up, you can recite it, push the enemy back.
Yeah.
And one of my grandsons, he wants to open a church. He's only 8, and he already wants to open a church.
Yeah.
My other grandson has 3 Bibles, and he reads all 3 of them. There are 3 different versions: Amplified, King James, and NIV.
Okay.
And he loves it. He has a devotional that he reads every day to better understand God's word.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, that's what I want to leave. The youngest one, he's 5. He's still learning how to recite the Lord's Prayer. Okay. And my oldest granddaughter, she's learning how to apply the word now.
To her life. That's
Yes.
awesome.
Learning to apply it. Yes.
Yeah. Very cool. And I very much enjoyed our conversation. I always ask, well, I want to ask, is there anything else you want to say on the topic of cancer recovery that you haven't had a chance to say?
Have a village of people that support you.
Mhm.
Try and keep all the negativity away that you can, because negativity will drive you into a depression if you're not careful, and it'll cause your body to work against itself. Try and keep positivity around you at all times. If the doctor says rest, rest. Okay.
Yeah.
If the doctor says drink more water, drink more water.
Yeah.
You have to do what you need to do in order to stay here if you want to. Now, if you ain't trying to stay here, then do all the crazy stuff. But if you want to stay here, do what is necessary. Keep positivity around you all the time.
Awesome. I love that.
Okay.
And final question I always ask everybody is, if you could leave the audience with only one thing, it doesn't have to be related to anything that we talked about, but just one final thing, like a parting message, what would that be?
That God is the source of everything.
Mhm.
You may have in your mind a higher power. Okay. But for me personally, God is the source of everything. Tap into your higher power in order to navigate the challenges that are coming down the pike right now.
Okay. Awesome. I love that. Thank you, Thalia. Thank you for being live on my YouTube channel. I'm so glad I got a chance to have you on here. I'm going to share this with my network a little bit later. I'll put it on my Facebook and everything. Yeah, I really appreciate you being here. I enjoyed our conversation a lot.
Same here, Joseph. Thank you so much for having me. You have a wonderfully warm evening, okay?
Yeah, stay warm and be safe for sure.
Yes,
don't go driving.
You as well. No driving. No driving. Not at all.
I'm going to go warm up my car too. That's a good idea.
Good job.